Humans like comfort, food delivery, fast Wi-Fi, cheap flights, a new phone. Modern economies are built around stability. Factories produce things. Trucks move those things. People buy those things. Everything works because the system runs smoothly. But now imagine that entire system suddenly getting hit by the biggest disruption possible. War, missiles instead of trucks, factories switching from cars to tanks, budgets switching from schools to weapons. War isn't just something that happens on battlefields. It completely reshapes economies. It can bankrupt nations. It can create massive industries. It can crash markets. And sometimes, weirdly, it can make parts of an economy grow faster. Today we're breaking down how war actually affects the economy. No movie drama, just how the system works. And to keep things simple, we'll use one running example the whole time. First, let's understand what an economy actually is. An economy is just a giant network of production and trade. People make stuff, people sell stuff, people buy stuff. Factories, farms, offices, ports, trucks, shops, all connected. When everything runs smoothly, goods move efficiently. Think about your burger meal follows a chain. Farm, slaughterhouse, distribution truck, restaurant, your hands. War breaks that chain. And when supply chains break, prices start doing weird things. Now let's talk about the first major economic impact of war, government spending. War is expensive, very expensive. Countries suddenly need weapons, ammunition, military vehicles, fuel, logistic systems, training, soldiers, intelligence equipment. All of this costs enormous amounts of money, so governments massively increase spending. Economists call this defense spending. In many wars throughout history, military spending becomes one of the largest parts of a country's budget, and that money flows into certain industries. Factories, engineering firms, shipyards, technology companies, logistics companies. Suddenly those industries have huge demand, which means more jobs, more production, more money moving through the system. There's a catch. All that money has to come from somewhere. So how do governments actually pay for wars? Usually in three main ways: taxes, borrowing, and creating new money. Let's start with taxes. The most straightforward method: the government raises taxes to fund military operations. But raising taxes during stressful times can slow the economy. People spend less money, businesses invest less money, and suddenly fewer people are buying products. So governments usually don't rely on taxes alone. The second method is borrowing, and this is the big one. Governments borrow money by issuing something called government bonds. A bond is basically a loan. Investors give the government money today, and the government promises to pay it back later with interest. During wars, national debt often grows very quickly. Many countries today still carry debt that originally came from past wars. Debt itself isn't automatically bad, but large amounts of debt can create long-term economic pressure. Now let's talk about the third method: creating money. Sometimes governments increase the money supply to help pay for war spending, but if the amount of money grows too quickly compared to the amount of goods in the economy, inflation can happen. Remember our burger meal. If suddenly everyone has more money, but the number of burgers stays the same, prices go up. And during wars, supply often drops, which makes inflation even stronger. Now let's talk about supply problems. Because war destroys infrastructure: roads, railways, ports, factories, power plants. These systems are what allow modern economies to function. If a port shuts down, imports stop. If a factory gets damaged, production falls. If transportation routes become dangerous, deliveries slow down. Suddenly the ingredients needed for your burger meal might not even arrive. Maybe the beef supply drops. Maybe cooking oil becomes harder to get. Maybe trucks can't safely reach the restaurant. Less supply combined with steady demand usually means higher prices. And that's one reason food prices often rise during wars. Now let's talk about labor. During large wars, millions of people leave their civilian jobs. They become soldiers. This removes workers from farms, factories, construction, transportation. Now the economy has fewer people producing goods. Production slows down, which again means fewer burgers available. But something interesting often happens at the same time. When labor shortages appear, other groups often enter the workforce. Industries reorganize, companies adopt new technologies faster, war forces and economies to adapt quickly, which brings us to industrial transformation. During wars, factories often change what they produce. Car factories can start building military vehicles. Electronics companies develop communication systems. Chemical companies produce fuels and specialized materials. This shift is called industrial mobilization. Production moves away from consumer goods and toward military needs. The downside is that normal consumer products become harder to find. Your burger restaurant might struggle to get ingredients, equipment, or workers. Meanwhile, defense contractors might be hiring thousands of people. Some parts of the economy boom, others shrink. Now let's talk about technology. War is destructive, but historically it has accelerated certain types of innovation. When national survival is involved, governments invest heavily in research and development. Advances in aviation, communication, logistics systems, and medical treatments have often accelerated during wartime. After war's end, many of these technologies eventually spread into civilian life, helping create new industries. But again, that doesn't mean war is economically good, because the destruction usually outweighs the benefits. And that leads to the biggest economic cost of war: physical destruction. War can devastate entire cities, factories, bridges, power plants, transportation systems. When these assets are destroyed, economic production collapses. Businesses shut down, jobs disappear. Rebuilding could take years, sometimes decades. And during that time, people still need food, but supply remains limited, which pushes prices higher again. Now let's talk about global trade. Modern economies depend heavily on international trade. Ships move goods across oceans. Planes carry products across continents. War disrupts these systems quickly. Shipping routes become dangerous. Sanctions block trade between certain countries. Ports might close. Airspace may be restricted. Suddenly, global supply chains shift. A country that once imported essential goods might need to find new suppliers, usually at higher prices. As example, think about your burger meal might now cost $14 instead of $10. It's not because restaurants suddenly became greedy, but because the entire supply system became more expensive. Energy is another huge factor. Oil and natural gas power transportation, factories, and electricity. Wars involving major energy regions can influence global prices. If supply drops or transportation becomes risky, energy prices often rise. And when energy prices rise, almost everything becomes more expensive, because energy powers the entire economy, including the trucks delivering ingredients to your burger shop, so the meal price rises again. Now combine all these factors together: supply disruptions, labor shortages, money creation, government spending, trade problems, energy shocks. You get strong inflation pressure, prices rise across the entire economy. And for people with stable incomes, this can feel extremely frustrating. The same paycheck buys fewer goods, including fewer burger meals. But there's another phase that sometimes follows large wars: the rebuilding phase. After major conflicts end, countries often begin massive reconstruction efforts. Infrastructure gets rebuilt. Factories reopen, construction surges. Governments invest in roads, housing, and energy systems. Demand increases quickly. Jobs increase. Production increases. Innovation spreads. Sometimes this rebuilding period creates strong economic growth, but this depends heavily on political stability and long-term planning. Not every country experiences a boom. Some struggle with debt and instability for decades. Now here's the big picture. War reshuffles the entire economic landscape. Some industries gain huge demand: defense manufacturing, energy production, cybersecurity, logistics. But other industries suffer: tourism, retail, air travel, hospitality. So while some parts of the economy grow, others shrink dramatically. Economists call this economic distortion. Resources shift away from consumer comfort and toward national survival. Your burger restaurant might struggle, but a military equipment manufacturer might be expanding rapidly. And that's why economists often say peace is extremely valuable for long-term economic growth. Peace allows stability. Stability allows planning. Planning allows investment. And investment drives prosperity. War forces economies into emergency mode, where survival becomes the priority. When that happens, even the price of lunch can tell the story. So next time you notice everyday prices changing, sometimes the cause isn't just local. It might be something happening thousands of miles away, because in a connected global economy, war anywhere can affect prices everywhere. War isn't just about soldiers and battles. It's also a massive economic shock. It changes production, it changes prices, it changes industries, and even if you live far from the conflict, you still feel it. If this helped you understand how war reshapes the economy, hit like, and comment to the one everyday thing that's gotten way more expensive lately. See you in the next one.